Hello, everybody, and welcome to one of our first episodes for Southern Gothic Creations. What we're going to do here, for those of us that are new to Robert Baker and I, we're going to talk about some things, culture, true crime. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything since that was originally our goal. We do have a website called Two Average Joes where we talk about true crime and things of that nature. I will put a link down there, but when we're on Southern Gothic, we're going to kind of go in another direction. And not that we're not going to talk about crime some, but we want to talk about some cultural things. So to give you a little background on me, been around a long time. And I've been fascinated with a lot of the things that are culture that we're going to talk about, which the two biggest ones are going to be two of my favorite things. They were my favorite things when I was 6 and my favorite thing when I'm 60. Now everybody here that saw me say I was 60, I'm supposed to go, man, that guy looks good for 60, so I appreciate you saying it. Okay, I'm Joseph St. John, spent most of my life in law enforcement, but most of my time trying to be a regular guy. And my partner here is Robert Baker. Tell him a little bit about you, and then I'll give him about a 2-second brief on us.
I'm currently a practicing lawyer in Michigan. Do a lot of criminal defense work and other civil litigation. I've been an accountant. I've been in the Army. I've been many things. Joe and I met each other when we were about 7 or 8 years old. And
in the third grade.
In the third grade, and we've been, and probably still are, frustrated musicians that.
Yes, this is true.
Would like to be rock stars, and he picked the police, and I picked the law, and we're rock stars in our own rights, in our own little realm.
In our own minds.
Right.
I'm listening to this. I want this one here. We're going to kind of talk about culture, and me and him have known each other forever. And I'm going to share with people who are watching this, especially those that are sort of our age. There are some things that I don't like about getting on. Okay, we're not getting into it. I don't like it. But if there is something I love, is that actually you do have a point of reference. You know, sometimes I thought my parents were a little goofy because they thought a certain way. And then looking back on it, I'm saying, they just had a different point of reference. Okay. And perhaps they knew what they were talking about and I didn't, especially when I was younger. But there's just a different point of reference. And I think it's very interesting because when we first started doing programs, before we did politics and we did crime and did all of that, we really wanted to spend a lot of time talking about some cultural things that were happening that we enjoyed and just maybe share with people that they want. And today, when we first started talking, you brought up you were reading or listening to a book. Now, we shouldn't make surprise. He actually listens to books a lot.
Yeah, we listen. I listen.
Oh, wait, tell us a little bit about.
The book is about how Marvel came into being and how it came to dominate now the movie industry. And starts out with a couple of Jewish guys who started Marvel Comics back, I believe it was in the 40s or 50s.
30s.
30s?
I think it was the 30s, because remember they were doing all that pulp stuff. There's a lot of history here. We're not going to get it today, but we'll get it. Remember they're doing all the pulp newsstand stuff.
Yeah, and what fascinated me was that they were and also ran the Marvel comic book land for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And
they had a nice stretch of success during the war, World War II for them. WW2, as they used to say back in the day, right?
Right.
And they probably had the best American hero, my favorite to this day. You see that? Captain America. Right. Okay. And he kicks off in like 41. As a matter of fact, on the first cover of Captain America from that time period, hopefully I'll put a link down there, he's beating up Hitler. So before the war even started, Captain America was beating up Hitler. Okay? Right. They had some success, and it was called Timely Comics. When the war went off and the 50s came in, and even though it was Cold War time, the superhero kind of took a dive. And it hit Timely a lot harder than it hit DC.
Right.
And when you say they were also rans, that was probably very correct.
Yeah, because, you know, who were DC's biggest people in the day?
And it's nice when your comic book industry, your portfolio starts with Superman and Wonder Woman. Okay.
Right. So
They were able to ride the storm.
right. And that's what this book that I'm listening to or reading or whatever I'm doing with it, it goes through from the beginning, and I'm up to where Iron Man is just the first Iron Man movie is being produced and done right now. So
This is really good. I just got done watching Iron Man 2. I love them. I can watch them. I love them. I even like the Eternals. Nobody hold that against me. I like the Eternals.
this is where this is why we wanted to talk about culture, because I don't know if Joe and I were in a bunch of bands, and we weren't really in bands together, but we were in parallel universes.
We were in the multiverse.
We
in
were.
the Newport News band multiverse.
Right. I mean, and we lived probably 3 blocks or 4 blocks from each other.
Right.
And I played bass and I had my own PA system, and Joe was a lead singer. But one of the first songs that I ever learned to play was what? Iron Man.
I love Black Sabbath too. We can do
Yeah, that's a Black Sabbath tune, but that was, I didn't even know about Iron Man in the comic book land when I was playing.
I was very disappointed when I realized that Black Sabbath did not write that for the Iron Man character in the comics. I was quite disappointed, but
that's what I loved about because they do have that song in
as they should.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Black Sabbath didn't know that because they were. I cannot confirm this, but I believe they didn't know that the Iron Man comic existed since they were actively worshiping Satan at the time.
Right.
Don't quote me
Just to digress for just 1 minute, is Joe and I, this is what we started out we were going to do. Okay.
This is
we
true.
got a little distracted for about a year.
Not
so if
here's the motto.
tuned,
not all ideas are good ideas. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you could go back to, if you go find our 2 Average Joe channel and go back, I had bought this building and Joe had come here to Michigan a couple of times, but he came into a rat's nest of stuff that was going on politically in Michigan. And it was really a movement that we thought we could, I guess, grab the tail of. But anyway, but this is what we had started out doing this with. And the way I met Joe was through this other channel that he has, 40 Plus and Fit.
There'll be a link down there for that too.
Yeah. And I had lost a ton of weight, or I was stuck at losing weight. But anyway, watch
Watch 40 Plus and Fit too. There'll be a link.
Yeah, watch that.
But we want to go into this because, see, I think cultural stuff matters. I think I'm a big baseball fan, and I made the huge mistake of being a baseball fan and ordering extra innings off of DirecTV.
Oh man.
So I'm just watching way too much baseball. Okay. As a kid, what was great was I bought baseball and football cards and basketball cards and even hockey cards. And it helped me keep up with all the players. Now, today it's a lot easier because I'm watching way too much baseball and I can sit on my phone and if there's a player I want to know about, I do not have to go get my baseball cards. Okay. I can just look it up on my phone. But I think sometimes the little things are very, very culturally significant. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and this friend had a very interesting concept about growing up in the 60s and 70s like you and I did. Now, for people who are younger than us, alert, 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 old man talk. But listen, hey, listen, kid, you're going to learn something, okay? Yeah. There was a cultural thing that does not exist now that did exist then, okay? If you were an 8-year-old in America, okay, didn't care what race, creed, color you were, didn't care where you lived. Let me tell you what you did on Saturday morning. You got up, probably before your parents. You and your siblings, if you had any, would stay in your pajamas and get a big old bowl of cereal. And you would turn on the cartoons. There was only 3 stations. So every one of us youngsters that were watching these cartoons, were watching basically the same cartoons. Mm-hmm. So if you were an 8-year-old and you were in America and you were anywhere in the world and somebody came up behind you and went, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Where are you? You could have finished off the rest of the words
Yeah.
because you knew y'all had some work to do now. Okay.
Right.
That kind of cultural glue doesn't exist anymore. Okay. There's 5 million channels. There's so much stuff you can watch and you can stream, and it's not bad. There's some good things from that. But I think when we talk about cultural stuff, I think sometimes it is put off as fluff, when in actuality, it is the glue that holds us together. And then, unfortunately, without getting political,
Yeah.
America's kind of goes in 50,000 different directions now because there doesn't seem to be enough glue to hold this together.
True that.
Okay. But one of the interesting things when he talked about Marvel, because I was a comic book freak
Mhm.
and still am, is that massive change from the comic, the pulp time. For those of you who are my age and remember the golden age of magazines, okay? It is hard to explain that people from 6 to 106 literally went to a magazine rack store and bought many magazines if they didn't have them mailed to them.
Yeah.
If you went into the average home during this time, the amount of magazines people had were crazy. Now, Robert, you didn't have any sisters, did you, that I remember?
No.
So I am sure, and I'm hoping, please answer right, there was no 16 magazine or Teen Beat in your house.
No. No. No.
I had sisters.
Yeah.
I had Teen Beat and 16 magazine in my house. And here's what was crazy about that. I was a music nut. So I'm listening to Kiss. My sister is listening to the Bay City Rollers.
Mhm.
Okay. I've got my Kiss magazines, if you can remember them, Circus,
Yeah.
Spring magazine, coolest magazine ever. Okay.
Right.
Boy, howdy for all you old timers.
Yeah.
Hit Parader. And she had 16 magazine and Teen Beat and whatever other stuff like that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, because people go, oh, we have the internet now. We know. It wasn't readily available like the internet. But you knew Kiss was working on a record.
Yeah.
My sister knew the Bay City Rollers were working on a record. Okay.
Mhm.
You could buy a magazine. Yes, it was not the same as plugging in your internet. And realize that when the Stones, when Mick Taylor quit, it was a nightmare. They didn't know who they were going to replace him with.
Mhm.
Okay. And they recorded the album Black and Blue, the Stones did. And people didn't like it at first. They kind of like, oh, it's a mess because of all the different guitar players and blah, blah, blah. Actually, it's an excellent album.
Mhm.
And Ron Wood comes in the last minute and saves the day. Unless you're the other guitar players that got basically dismissed after he showed up, right?
Right.
You knew it. There was drama. And that's where you got it from. You followed your politics, not on some crazy news station in the morning. Okay. You got
Mhm.
Time, you got Newsweek, you got those things. And I think as we progress through Southern Gothic in particular, we really want to discuss those issues about how culture is big and kind of go through the history of it. Because it's
Mhm.
very easy to think now, well, what did people do before the internet? We read a lot.
We did.
Bought books. Okay. Bought books. We bought tons of magazines.
Collected comic books.
Huh?
Collected comic books. Collected baseball cards.
Yeah. That's where you got all your information, and it was pretty good. Let me ask you something, Robert. Put you on the spot.
All right.
I was a horror movie nut too, by the way. Had all those monster models. Big Wolfman fan.
Yeah.
I watched Wolfman 2 months ago. Still good. Okay.
Mhm.
Ron Chaney Jr. for president. Do you remember the Ben Franklin Shopping Center?
I do.
First indoor mall we ever had in Newport News.
That's where I opened my first bank account, was Newport News Savings and Loan, which was right in the parking lot of Ben Franklin. Right?
You walked into Ben Franklin Mall. And Stephen's Bakery had that place smelling like heaven. Fresh baked sweets. And they had all the waterfalls. Do you remember? When you walked in on the left, there was a place called Booking Card, which was full of books and cards.
All right.
The comic books were up at the front to make sure the kids didn't steal,
Yeah,
right? Do you remember when you walked in how much stuff they had stuffed in that area?
I do.
It was the golden age of magazines. And they had everything. They had children's magazines, rock magazines. You walk in, the comic books were up front. As I got a little older, you would venture to the back wall.
Right, right.
Now, they kept the soft porn all covered up, so they were watching you. So if you were a kid and you accidentally went in that direction, they'd yell at you.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't know it was there. And it's all covered up with brown paper, okay?
Right, right, right.
And on that back wall were the adult comics. When I say adult comics, do not think I'm talking about porn. That word has now been ruined. They were just comics that were written for 20-year-olds, okay?
Yeah, right.
All the horror magazines and all the wrestling and boxing magazines.
Did
Okay.
they have the true crime stuff there?
Oh, that was on the way.
Right. True Detective and all that other stuff.
Yes. I've written an article on that. I'll put a link down there.
Yeah,
It should have been brown.
half-naked women on the covers. I would.
As always in some semi-bonded situation.
Yeah.
There was literally, it was a mecca before TV. It did diminish some with TV, but it was still huge. You would go and it sounds so goofy, and it sounds like I'm reminiscing, and I probably am. I would like going to people's houses and see all of their magazines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have all their magazines and all of their comic books and paperbacks and stuff. And it was what held the culture together. And now I think that you moved a lot more to and there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm watching Netflix, okay?
Yeah.
I'm binging right now on some shows. So I mean, I don't want to act like, oh no, I mean, I like it. But it's kind of replaced it. And I think the Marvel situation is very apropos. And we're going to do a whole episode on Marvel DC. So I don't want to get too lost into that. I want to have some props too.
Yeah.
Okay? But now I'm going to ask Robert the truth. Here's the big question. The big enchilada. In high school, did we not spend more time studying these books, magazines, and album covers about music than we ever did anything we had in Ventura High School?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was collecting comic books. That's what we were talking about it before, but
yeah.
Fantastic Four, I had every single comic book up to, I think it was like 40 or 50. I can't remember where it was at. And we would trade them between friends, and we would get, it was a whole
it was a network
thing, you know, where it was a rapport with your friends and people who collected these things.
The Garbage Pail Kids, one of the we'll do an episode on the garbage. They were disgusting. We would bring them in our baseball cards and trade them, so you could get all the disgusting ones. Okay.
Right.
You did that with the comics. Here was the weird thing. The monster models, the universal monster models, and I was big in them. I had a couple, but this guy had ones that we traded. I'd go over his house. Here's the model you want.
Mm-hmm.
You take the model I want. Walk back home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like, I got Dracula now. My day's complete.
Yeah.
It was a personal network where it may sound strange, but we were able to, as kids, to walk around long periods of time, traveling great distances.
Yeah, without parental.
And nobody worry about you. Now you have to remember, so if you're a little younger, it was nothing. for me to grab a model, not being silly, make sure I don't break it because nobody wants a broken model. Walk to this dude's house that had to have been 10 or 15 minutes away. Get the other model. Let's talk about monsters killing people, right? Get my model that I just traded for and walk all the way home, and nobody actually know where I was. I just said I'm going over this dude's house.
Right.
No, I guess if you didn't show up, that would have been a problem, but nobody has no questions. You and I one time, and I kind of want to end this on this one because we're going to get into cultural things, and we want to talk about it. And there is a little reminiscing to this, but I think people appreciate it. Yeah. Especially when we bring it full circle about what things we like and what we don't like.
Right.
Robert and I, for the most part, at Jenkins Elementary, continuously crossed paths. We just knew each other. I mean, always did. And we hadn't seen each other for 100 years. He picks me up in the airport and we start talking like we saw each other yesterday.
Right. Yeah, just recently.
Which is just the way it is, right? Robert would actually, we talked about this one of the first time we did, we all walked home in a pack. And there was some distance to get to your house, mine more than yours. You were much closer to Jenkins than I was. And Robert brought this up and I knew it was true. It wasn't something I could say I remembered, but I knew it was true. Robert would not go straight home. You would walk down the road with us and we would all walk down and we would get to a certain road, which was Edsel Street, which I lived on, right?
Right.
A group of us would turn to what would be our left.
Yeah.
And then a group would turn right. So Robert would actually walk down the street with us, take a right, then have to double back to it.
I would. Yeah, I'd go way past where I could go.
We weren't going to miss that conversation.
Yeah.
And whatever we were talking about, whatever insanity. I think that personal contact is absolutely brilliant. I think it taught you how to be an adult. I think it taught you how to get along with people. And it taught you how to get along. Because there were times where we had to do that opposite, where you lived away from me and we, like maybe me and a couple of our buds lived closer to me. But then we would uproot and go talk to you. And we would just walk. There was nobody would have ever thought, call you up. Hey, let me text you. What you doing? Like,
yeah, right.
Call you up. Hell no. We just knock on your door.
Yeah, right.
What are you doing? We just thought we'd come over here. I think those things really did teach us a lot. So when we go through with Southern Gothic, there's a lot we're going to talk about in comic books, music, culture. Not all about the good old days, because everything about the good old days weren't good, but just how it's grown. And it's going to be very interesting. And I know this is what you really want to do.
It is. And, just to set this cultural stage, Vietnam was ramping up. The country at the time was going through growing pains or, civil rights and all kinds of different aspects of our nation was struggling, trying to find its way after World War II. We were the end of the boomer generation. So World War II, the people came back, impregnated their, the soldiers did, a bunch of babies popping out, and Joe and I were one of the last.
The last of that group.
The last of that group. And it created an interesting couple of decades, right?
Right.
So there was cultural shifts of epic proportions. You have music and literature and movies, and that's what we wanted to, when we originally started talking about doing a podcast, that's what we originally started to talk about.
People who are around our age that are watching this, and people who are younger, hell, if you're older, I'd really like your opinion, because there is times where we're going to talk about things and I want to make sure we're clear. And there's going to be a couple of links to see that down there, but I want to stay as focused on what people are saying. An interesting tidbit to mention this, and again, we want people's opinion. We were the first generation of young people that were driven by this thing called disposable income. Okay? We have disposable income now. People will act like we don't, but we do.
Mhm.
Go talk to your parents if you're our age or our grandparents or your grandparents or your great grand. There was no disposable income.
No.
It took every dime everybody had to live.
Mhm.
Nobody had no 15 cents to give to you to run down to 7-Eleven and go get some comic.
Right.
Okay. Disposable income was this incredible new thing that allowed people to go to the movies at will, that allowed you to buy all this stuff. It created, I'm going to call it a toy generation. Go listen to old people, which I know I'm one now, but older than me, and they'll go, "Do you want at Christmas?" Yeah, we got a sock full of fruit, a pair of shoes.
An apple, spare socks.
Okay, by every definition, I'm an older guy. Right?
Right.
And I still remember looking there. I'll tell you what we got for Christmas. Got some socks. Got a piece of hard chocolate. What did you get, boy? Woo! I got a bunch of school clothes that I refuse to look at.
Right.
Some toys. And my dad bought me an electric football set. Really cost money
Right.
for his house. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Right. Yeah, along the lines of the disposable income, this is where, okay, so in the generations previous to us, they had basically mechanical pinball machines,
Yes,
but they just started coming out with video machines when we were
that's right.
young. They had come out with the first personal computers when we were young,
Yes.
which we'll have an episode on the TRS-80, which was a Radio Shack
Right.
computer that was, the hard drive was a cassette player. But anyway.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm promising the listeners now.
Right.
We're going to do a program on Pong. And I am going to let you watch Pong for 30 minutes.
I wonder if we could play it.
I'm gonna see if we can, but if not, I'm just gonna let us watch Pong. And then you're gonna go, these guys, they considered this fun.
Right. We would play it for hours.
Hours. If you don't know what Pong is, look it up. But when you watch the episode, you're gonna feel sorry for us. But we had some cool stuff, dude. Did you ever have? I had a. We were not people of means. Okay, I swear to God, we were not people of means. We were just working class folks. But every now and then, stuff would show up at that house for Christmas that was unbelievable. That electric football game.
Yeah.
By the way, you can't make those guys running the same.
We'll have to get a video of that because you can't even explain what it is.
I had an air hockey set.
Yeah.
You could have killed a man with my air hockey set.
Yeah.
It was like it was a smaller version of what you see at the arcade. Mm-hmm. My brother and I, the fact that we still had all four eyes after we put that up was a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, the funny thing is that, you and our parents were born either during or right after the Great Depression.
They were poor. These were.
They were dirt poor, so they wanted to shower their kids with, and then we were even worse in our.
And that's why we're where we're at right now. There's my social commentary. Yeah. Look, I'm gonna tell you something. My dad, my mom, they were not rich people. At no point in my life do I even want to imply that we were well off. We weren't.
Yeah.
But it was like they were going to make that happen occasionally.
Christmas time.
Yeah, it was Christmas. Both of those situations were Christmas. They were going to make that happen. Mm-hmm. The bikes, that was Christmas.
Big time.
So what I'm really trying to say is that is disposable income was happening. So even if you were, and I was, be honest, we were a working class neighborhood. I don't think there's no need to put any pretension up there.
Yeah, lower middle.
Yeah, I mean, just working class guys, And we reeked of it. We still do. I will tell you, working class. Those were some very interesting times, but the disposable income is a big deal. And yeah, I had kids, and I think we gave them probably too much, because then they had to have an Xbox, and then they had to have blah blah blah.
TVs in their room, phone in their room.
Yeah, TV. There's a whole phone in my room story that I'm not going to share today because I got to figure out how to put it. I had a phone in my room one day.
Right.
Every now and then in my working class house,
Mhm.
very good things happen. You know, people always talk about their youth, and there were some things about my past growing up that sucked.
Mhm.
Okay, sucked. Okay, sucked. Everybody's life sucks.
Mhm.
But I tend to remember stuff like the electric football, the arcade quality. You could kill a man with the air hockey set, right?
Yeah.
Or I was a teenager and had a phone in my room.
This is what I liked was, so Joe lived across the street from a thing called the Colony
The
Pool.
pool, which we were not members.
None of our friends or us could afford to be members of this really nice pool in the center of this lower middle class neighborhood. And we'd have to walk by it or drive by it on the bus every day.
Try
And
living across from it. You would think I would have been scarred.
right. So my buddy and I, and his name is Mike Ober, we used to break in and go swimming in the middle of the night. Not that Joe
Let's
would
keep
do
it
that.
nice since he's still alive.
Right.
The pool. Here's my favorite pool story. Everybody listen, because you got to remember everything is placed in time. This pool is literally across the street from my house.
No, right. You could throw a rock and hit it. How
No,
do
you couldn't walk out your house.
the driveway was right almost in his driveway.
We're not members. I don't know why. I had a phone in my room when nobody else did, but we're not members of the pool, right?
Right.
So this is a true story. I think we should end the episode on this.
Okay.
Just let us know where we're going to go. My kids are going to stay with my mom, who's living in the same house. Got a babysitter. I'm going to get them a membership to the pool. That way they could go to the pool. You know, I never got to go to the pool.
Right.
Get my kids. They go to the pool. They were not impressed. They could.
They weren't impressed.
My kids are so involved in sports and stuff. Jesus Christ, they were so busy. It wasn't even funny. No, that didn't mean much to them. You know, one man's fantasy is another one's.
That is
Who
true.
cares? We got a baseball game today. We're going to drive 7,000 miles to play. Gymnastic tournaments. My kids are super busy. I wouldn't say it meant nothing, but pretty close. I could have cared less. There it is.
So anyway, this is what Southern Gothic Creations is going to be about. We're circling back for the culture and the things that we love and cherish from our childhood and even beyond. And it made us who we are. And I'm not sure who we are, but
and we're going to still talk about some crime and some stuff, but it'll be in a different light.
yeah.
We're going to talk about Vietnam, but it's going to be in a different light.
Yeah.
You cannot understand America if you do not understand Vietnam.
True that. True that.
You cannot understand America if you can't understand that one day we shot our president in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So you got to go there. If you're going to talk about these things, you got to go there.
Yeah.
Okay. We just don't want to get it overly political, and definitely not every episode.
Yeah.
So look, guys, we appreciate this. Southern Gothic, keep it up. We're going to be doing more. So until then, my dear friend, what do we always say?
See ya.
Hit that like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.